All right, so some more goodies. We can go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more examples. Different things, all right? So we'll just chug through these guys. They're kind of fun, mostly pictures. I mean, we've got given you enough, a little bit of technical stuff to figure out, so you kind of know what people are doing, trying to do. All right, Spectral Method. So this is kind of crazy. This is 2005. And I just said, all right, well, let's just look at the eigenvectors associated with various matrices that are important for graphs and networks. So this one we had for the random walks, k minus 1 times a, this guy, that appeared, that was the diffusion story. The Laplacian we just saw, this little beast that appears when we do SVD. Just, let's look at all these guys. And I'm just telling you some of these stories, right? So the eigenvectors associated with the secondary eigenvector, not the first one, but the ones that come after, are often connected with the structure of the network. Kind of funny ways. So it's connected part to the Kleinberg work, the Hitz algorithm. So here's a simple structure. Clearly we have these communities, right? So you want your little thing to pop up and say that they're distinct. And so it turns out for these that this is the second eigenvector's components for, and I can't remember which matrix it is offhand, but they're really separated. Yeah. So kind of a madness. You can, and then they went off. So I guess it was AA transpose. That's what they're using in general. Some modification here. Let's see, so this is word associations, and so we're going to use this again. I think there are a couple of data sets around there, free associations. So you ask students, you give them words, and then they just have to say other words, right? Like they're in a psychiatry thing. Okay, so this is actually using the 2nd to 11th eigenvectors of this thing in terms of, ranked by the magnitude of their eigenvalues. And then just looking at the values in there and then sort of grouping them. Right? So if they have similar values, they get put in the same box. So this is a little spooky, right? Spectral. Okay, good. I said it before. Hilarious. So these, it does a reasonable job. So these are things. So they correlate pretty well. Which one? Banjo is a little high there. That's true. At least accordion did not make it in. Okay, so. One of the great weapons to have been produced by Europeans. Okay, so and so we'll see some more of this. Blah, blah, blah. So this is just a funny, very different approach, right? There's no building things. It's just let's just use this mad eigenvector finding machine that we have. We've had it lying around. We'll just feed a matrix into it and see what comes out. What's that? Well, so it's how connected it is to that word. Yeah. So it's not really connected to literature. It wasn't on the top of the thing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's a whole thing, right? And you can go and dig into that one if you're pretty psyched about that approach. And there are deeper reasons for why that can actually work in that way, but it's perhaps a little surprising, so let's just throw that one out there. So this is Klaus Ett. He's popped up, and of course Newman's involved with this one, but Klaus Ett's popped up a few times over the years in these courses. So this is appeared in Nature in 2008, right? So these things get big billings. If you come along and say, I've got a splendid new approach, and you know the right people, you can get your thing published. So this is a bit more than just finding a clustering. So here's an example. The idea is to actually build a model of the thing. It's a hierarchical model. And the lighter the color of these, so the nodes are actually here, right? This isn't a network, this is a dendrogram of sorts again, but it's not the same sort of thing. What you do is you take any two nodes and then travel back up to their least common ancestor, right? So say we're here, and we find these ones. That's the probability that they have a connection. And the lighter the color, the stronger the probability, right? So these guys these are the ones that are most likely to be connected. So anyone in this group versus anyone in this group there's really little chance. And so you can see the colors. There's this kind of, this is the creatures over here sort of thing, if they actually match up. Some madness, right? Right? So this is, so you know, there's a way of getting this in a fairly principled kind of way. It's a superposition of things again. Hierarchical random graph models. So you can actually now start to produce, and we've done this a little bit, but you know, now there's another way of producing networks, right? So you've got your real one, you deduce this from it, and now you start producing networks. You get an ensemble of networks that are like the real one. So this is yet another way to make a whole like cloud. So if you like, right, you've got your real one, and here's like a way of producing a little ball of networks around it that you can look at that are close to it in some way. And then you can start to say, well, you know, here's the real one. How does it depart from this little ensemble I've created? And so they can actually get to that. So one of the nice things, so missing links is part of this actually, which is, you know, one of the great problems with networks. They may end up with these consensus dendrograms. They may end up with a high probability of two things connecting, but they're not connected. So then, you know, the idea is you go and try and figure out, you go back to your data, you go back to the real thing, whatever it is, and see if this thing is eating this thing or whatever it is, you know. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. That's pretty clever. So there's a couple of examples. So they'll actually, you know, actually produce networks, as I said, so they can get out things like average degree and clustering and then compare them. And so this is their, you know, an example of it. The real one for the average degree, the sample. So they're not the same, but they're doing not a bad job. It's not a bad job, right? So this is clustering, and this is the average shortest path. Grassland species. So this is you know, how are these things connected? These might be based on, you know, do they coexist? Very nice. It's a circular thing. Another crazy pattern. So, and there'd be probabilities of connections in here. Wow. Can handle different types of things. It's very good. Okay, all right. So that's a whole thing. Overlapping communities. Okay, so up until now, it's all about finding explicit communities, and you're part of one community. So the next couple pieces really depart from that. Okay, small world network. So we talked about this a long time ago. I should see, what I mean is when doing our research, we talked about this, right? So, okay, you've seen these slides. I'm throwing up again. So identity is deeply embedded in the way our social networks are structured. Groups are formed by people who share some kind of attribute, and your attributes put you into contacts that give you kind of interactions and form your networks, and this goes back and forth across the whole thing. Right, and we've seen this sort of thing now. We've got the math for this stuff as well, so bipartite affiliation structures, right, individuals and groups, gives rise to a unipartite structure. And then, so you can start to think about these contexts, and they have all sorts of nice structures. So this is work, and then this kind of clear thing that people actually belong to different contexts, right? So the links have flavors, and that's what's going on here. So these are flavors of affiliations, which give rise to the links between people. Often have colors, right? Or the links between whatever it is, the nodes. They have, so the observation in the end, and this is the one that's made by the Bagro paper, is that nodes can have many affiliations, so it can have many different colors, and that's what actually makes it quite hard to sort out. But the links can often be well defined. These two people are connected because they both like basketball, right? There might be some other structures to it, but the links, so you can start to cluster the links, right? So the ones about basketball. All right. Okay, as I said, these earlier methods force they're actually just breaking the whole thing into communities, right? You have to be in that team or that team. There's no ambiguity. I mean, some of them are probabilistic and so on, of course, but there's a kind of a desire to put people in boxes. Okay, so overlap means that, well, all right, no, you are actually part of, we're going to have communities that overlap each other, and that's going to be a hard thing to figure out. So here's one approach. This appeared in Nature in 2005. So instead of some of this more elaborate stuff, I just said communities have to be K cliques. So that means they're fully connected little groups of K. And then that's the core of them. But then as long as you have, so you can start with one of those, as long as you then have overlapping ones or interconnected ones such that they share at least K-1 nodes, so they're pretty tight, then we'll call that a community. Okay, so that in a way they're not really, so it must share K-1 nodes. This is not, the main story here is they're trying to get at the overlapping thing. This is a little simplified, but the clique idea. Of course, so how do you choose K? That's a horrible problem. Okay, we got somewhere with the modularity thing, but now they have all these pieces, right? So 4 new pieces. So the number of communities a node is part of, and you could think about the strength and so on. The number of nodes shared between 2 communities, if they're communities are alpha and beta, this is OV for overlap. Then you end up with a degree of community, which we had that before, but you can think about that again. And the size of a community, right? So now you have distributions for all of these things. And because we like power laws, we make them, right. Complementary cumulative distributions. All right, so that's, their interest. This is the paper. It's one line in LaTeX now. Okay, so all right, so here's the idea, right? So you have this one person in here, and they're parts of these communities. This is the sketch. Friends are down here, family, hobby, scientific community, and then that has its own overlapping structure in here. Kind of interesting to see what it is. Yeah, mathematicians and biologists seem to apparently have an overlap. Oh, okay, but right. So there's a thing. I think so. Yeah, actually, she just drifted it. Certainly outside of scientists. That's totally inappropriate. Yeah. Yes, not real physicists. Right. This reminds me of old Montgomery Burns piece. I can't quite find it on The Simpsons. You can't really get at, right? It's syndicated, so you can't find bits of it. But he gives a talk at the local high school at some point, and they say, what's your reason for success, right? Principal Skinner. Is it just plain old stick-to-itiveness, or it gives him a list of other kind of goofy things, and he says and Burns gets up and says you have to slay the 3 dragons of life, something like this, which are family, friends, and religion. And then you'll be on your way to becoming successful. It's a great moment. Anyway, sorry. Just the scientists do this a lot. They slay these other aspects of their life. Yeah. So this is a little sketch part, right? So, but the idea is we should be able to find them overlapping, which no one else has done before. Or the authors claim that no one else has done. People have certainly thought about it, and this was always a challenge, actually, that we kind of laid out to some of the others, like, what about the overlapping bit? And I really think the Bugro stuff gets a long way there. So here's an example, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think, lots of social phenomena. I mean, corporations maybe, and all sorts of businesses and things like that. Probably something, proteins, right? So proteins could be part of different complexes and so on. So yeah, I think it's pretty general. This is, all right, scientists, okay? So this is this is really just an illustration of the story. So there's going to be overlap. This is the clique thing. You can look at this if you want. I suppose that there are cliques in here. I don't know if it's K equals 4. Is it right? Yeah. So there's a clique in there, and that's okay if you then just keep, right? This is an overlapping one, and they share 3 in common. Terrific. Okay. Yeah. Right. So this is actually, so this one is, it's Parisi, is a famous physicist. So he's in the middle, and they've labeled them, it's hard to read, I guess, complexity, supersymmetry, spin glasses, different things, right? Long range spin glass, different types. So these are the ones who work with. This one is, so that's words over there. This one I think must be a protein, right? Protein-protein interaction. So it's got its communities. This is for the word bright, and this is again a word association thing. So there are these different types. So this is colors over here, astronomy, right? So there's a very different kind of feel to it. But it's part of these, again, it's the right kind of thing. It's definitely part of these different communities. And this is intelligent, yeah? And out here is light, actually, just light. So dim is actually in there, right? And flashlight, torch, as I would say. Dark lit. What's that? Yeah, right. So dark brown, dark gray, dark tan, D'Artagnan. I think it does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Is that dark moonlight? It seems weird. Yeah, these are associations. Well, dark and moonlight, right? It doesn't mean it's a bigram. It just means that they're associated. People pair them. So dark and tan are near each other. Yeah. All right, so you need something that can get these boxes out, right? These different groupings. Words are a good fun one. Yeah, so telescope and star and moon. Really nice. Einstein is in there, which is pretty great. So there's gifted, genius, smart, intelligent, Einstein, inventor, scientist. Just like one guy. You know.
I was just going to say, I feel like that's always super brilliant.
Yeah, suck it, Newton. Just suck it. Well, he did. He said he was brilliant. Pretty rough on Galileo. And, you know, Leonardo. Yeah, actually Leonardo took a long time before they really said yes. Which is now appreciated, but not at the time. So of course we go to some power laws. So I just right, so they'll do these things. This is for, okay, this is for different things. So it's a condensed matter archive, so it's papers citing each other. The word association one, so that was just one example, right? Bright, now this is just everything. And Parisi was just one example of the other one. And then this whole, everything to do with protein in a yeast protein database. Okay, so now they go to the whole thing, right? So you can see back here, you know, bright is part of 1, 2, 3, right? So it has some number of groups it's part of. There are different group sizes. There's the overlap of the groups. You can measure all those things. And so that's what this is. I mean, we don't have to go into too much, but size of the communities. Now there's this, you know, claimed kind of power law, heavy tail sort of thing for the sizes. So there's some little ones and big ones. This is madness, right? There's sort of an exponential thing, and then they say it's a power law, but again, you know, kind of sketchy amounts of 1 order of magnitude. It's a log plot. Oh, hey. This is that's the number of communities that nodes are part of. So this is 20, that's 30. Yeah, that's maximum. Which ones? What about words? Words are, word association? Circles. Filled circles? Yes. Okay, that's protein, so that's not too much. And then squares for the words. Yeah. Okay, so words go out to, this is 20, so they'd be out to here. Which is decent, that seems reasonable. All right, so a whole other business, right? I mean, now it's like, now we have communities of all sizes. They're connected to each other. We have many affiliations potentially, right? So instead of, right, all the things we've looked at so far, this would be a delta function of 1. They're part of one community. yeah, and now they're potentially part of men, which are all good, decent. So fair enough. This is well done. The process of getting to the communities, with the K-cliques, yeah, the idea is pretty good. All right, so links are cool, right? So always good to look at the links. We tend to focus on nodes because we're nodes. And then, so again, this is just, I'm just throwing this up. Communities of links. That's the plan. Yeah. Cool. This is cool. And this thing I said before, the links are typically of one flavor, while nodes can be many flavors, as we just saw. All right. Yep. So you can still have this overlapping, plenty of overlapping activity going on, like really massive amounts of overlapping potentially, but still this hierarchical structure as well. Very happy. Well done. And so they got published in Nature as well. Good people. Yay. All right. So Newton. This is where they pushed a button on Newton to see what comes up around Newton. So it's a word association one. Again, I have it on some more slides, but we can look at it here. Yeah, so the links are colored, right? So this connection here, this is gravity and apple, right? That's a little block. They have a particular flavor to them, right? There is the apple Newton, which is not what's going on with that connection. Poor apple Newton. Well, they did make a pretty strong comeback with the iPhone. So weight and gravity have a different kind of flavor to them. Einstein is here, and then Einstein, these green links you can see, actually it goes into physics. Maybe it's a slightly different color. And then this is smart and intelligent, right? Inventor, all of this stuff. Those kinds of links have a particular flavor to them. There's another sort of box over here for a different kind of take on intelligence, right? So cunning, outfox, sly, right? You can be a professor of cunningness at Oxford. That's a Blackadder reference. Anyway, so these have a different kind of flavor to them. Okay. And this is all about science, right? Beaker is in there. Awesomeness. Okay. Different plan. Let's go berserk. So same idea, right? So a node is part of different communities. And this is exactly the thing I was showing you at the start. Right, so here's the hierarchy of people at a university. This is in their family, and these people are connected because this is their home and work. They have a joint appointment, so they have a connection across here. Whatever it is, right? So people are connected for different reasons. So they actually just say, well, let's just connect links, and that's the game. So they have a problem. Well, not a problem, but they also have the same issue of where do we stop the dendrogram? Where do we go on the dendrogram and say this is a good division of communities? So they have their own version of that. There's partition density D, which they say is awesome. This is to show that their thing is better than everyone else's. These are various kind of measures of how well the revealed communities match up with what's said by what's being told by the metadata associated with a network. Right? So there's some, if you like, kind of a not quite expert, but expert view of it. These are how things are broken down. So they have lots of different networks. There's a word association, Amazon one, US Congress, the Active Graph. That's a telephone one there. That's a huge database. And so they've got 4 measures, and they cleverly pile them up on top of each other so that the sum is what you're after. And they do better than everyone else's, right? So this is the link-based method versus clique percolation, greedy modularity, and InfoMap. These are the 3 well-established ones. I haven't mentioned InfoMap. That's another whole business. All right, so they're like, yes, it's better. Awesome. And it's good. It seems good to me. It's a nice, seems to be done well. All right. Berserkness, right? I mean, this is the telephone, the mobile phone stuff. So this is cities, kind of giving you some idea of the structure of who connects to whom. And they've done something here where they dial this, where they cut the dendrogram, actually, I guess. this gives you a more sort of coarse kind of community structure, right? They connect a little bit more roughly, playing around with it. And then this whole thing blows up into this network blows up in this network, and yay. So lots of stuff. All right. So that's clever. It seems, and I'm not sure if that's baked into anything yet much. I mean, it might be. It's 2010, so. All right, so last one. And again, you have to think about what your, if you're playing around with something, what's your real world application? So this is an very interesting study, right? So here's 6 species, or 6 organisms. So gorilla, bat, turtle, snake, crocodile, robin, and ostrich. And they have these connections with them based on traits, right? And here are all these different processes that could, characterize them. So this is a principal axis, component axis business, right? So puts a crocodile over here and a gorilla here, the robot is down, blah, blah, blah. There's a minimum spanning tree, so you want just a graph that connects them. Ostrich and crocodile are next to each other. On a one-dimensional thing, right? Let's force it to happen. So snake, turtle, crocodile, robin, gorillas up here. The general, so this is clustering, so we're going to put the birds together, reptiles together, and the mammals together, right? So that's going to work. Put them ridiculously on a ring, and then the sort of stuff we're doing over and over is the hierarchical clustering is out here. So the story here is, why don't allow all of these possible structures? Okay, so that's their plan, and they do some fun things. They have a interesting business again, right? So it's again starting from the top, a division type thing, and they look for these big possibilities at the start, right? So they kind of bring up a little grammar of how to build your structure, right? And there's a little generative process, so these things could break, right? So there's communities connecting, they could become 2 like this, or it could be all sorts of madness. Wow, it's a lot. Okay, so there's a whole plan, and you replace, so you keep building out, replacing nodes. So you start off as one big blob. So it's a divisive thing again, like the stuff we saw at the very start. And you can get all sorts of results. All right, so this is just the outcome for a few examples. These are colors ended up on a ring, for example. These are the, it's a number of Supreme Court justices, not just who was there at the time, but it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so how they're spread out in their opinions on a one-dimensional thing, or at least that's what it found. This is for organisms, right? Made a little dendritic tree, more of a proper tree thing. These are facial expressions, or in fact, I guess different shades of colors, right? So they put this one ended up being on a grid, which was appropriate. I mean, this was made. It was a test case that was made. These are cities based on how they're connected via airlines, right? So it does a pretty good job, right? So here's the southern hemisphere, largely out here. That's Los Angeles. And then as you're coming in more, it's more towards the northern hemisphere. And this should go around the world, right? Roughly. London, Madrid, Dakar is there, New York, Toronto, it's good. Anchorage, Tokyo is here, Vladivostok, Manila's there. So, again, feeding in some big, horrible database and getting out the right kind of feel for the structure. Cornice, yeah. You can, right, so, given how much you know about the individuals, right, the nodes, or how much you know about them in the first place, you'll get different results. This is to show you what happens as you 5 features, 20 features, 110 features. It definitely changes, right? It goes from a little separated star cluster thing into a dendritic tree, complex tree, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so partitioning. So the partition to start with is pretty good though, right? So birds are here. Insects are here. These are things that run around on land, right? Dog and cat, bit different over there, I suppose. Tiger, and things to do with the water. Right. Cool. So, and then here's a little test case to see how well it does, right? So here's the true. So it's test networks, right? So these are the true networks here, and they're fed into these algorithms that are trying to find a clean partition, a chain type structure, a ring type structure, a tree, or a grid. So the grid does pretty well on the grid, finds it out. And so you can see the fit, right? So this is the fit. So the partition is terrible. It tries to break this. This is what it takes this guy and makes it into this. Takes this guy and makes it into this. You see it's like, and these are its quality fits. And the best one is easily the grid in this case. The best one is always the right one, but it's not always by much. For example, this one here is the tree. So you can see that this grid does surprisingly well, even though it's awful to look at. You know that's wrong. What's that? This thing, yeah, it looks a little disturbed. This guy, right? So it's a ring, so it has to can't help itself. It has to make a ring out of it. But it doesn't get penalized a lot. The partition is awful for that one. This one, it's hard to see, but that's bad. And then partition does better than the others, right? So it does a good job. A partition, a chain has to glue everyone together. The ring has to make a ring. Tree has to make a tree. Grid wants to do this. So, this is to show that in principle, it will take the right path. Yeah. All right, so that's it for structure detection. It is a bit of a survey, of what is an unbelievably huge field. I mean, as I said, papers with 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 citations that aren't very old. Yeah. So it should all be in the black boxes you might use, but you can code them up for fun and profit as well. You need to know what's going on because there's a lot of magic that's being, right? And it could take a long time if it's a big network and you need to know yes or no. All right, okay, so very good. So there's more to do next week. We're going to do organizations and chaotic contagion. Thank you. Yeah, hipster the contagion. We're kind of excited about the beard thing, right? So there's a study that shows that.
Oh yeah, I saw you tweet that.
But it's a different model for sure. But yeah,
What did you see now?
we're definitely peak beard. Yeah.
You saw the new thing is implants, beard implants.
Jeez, that's peak beard right there.